Hey there, everybody. I wanted to come and share some insight that has come to me in the past couple of weeks, not only with myself, but also I find myself having the same conversation with a lot of the people that I work with. So that's always my cue of like, oh, this is something important that probably lots of people need to be aware of. So, all of us are on our own healing journey, right? We're all in this space of trying to learn and heal and grow so that we can become, the best version of ourselves throughout our lifetime. We never get it all done, but like that's our goal, right? So, we know that, but it's also really, really hard when as we're going through life, it seems like we keep getting hit with the same obstacles, the same challenges, the same things that trigger us over and over again. And we get to the point of like, oh my God, like, why does this keep happening? Right? We all get frustrated with it. Not just because we're not difficult people and getting frustrated with it, but because it's exhausting sometimes. It can be overwhelming sometimes. So, those emotions make sense, but here's like just a different perspective that I want for us to consider thinking about when the same kinds of things kind of keep coming at us. So, this initially came to me while I was working with a client, and I kind of said, like, it's kind of like when you're like learning karate, right? I don't know where this comes from because I don't know karate, but I'm like, when I assume, based on my vast knowledge of watching, TV and movies and whatnot, that when someone is learning karate, right, um, they have to have. You can you can learn from a book or from watching videos, or you could have your very own Mr. Miyagi, but it's theoretical knowledge until you're on the mat, until somebody is like actually throwing punches at you, right? You have to have somebody on the mat throwing punches at you in order for you to actually learn to go from theoretical to actually knowing how to block and to duck and to weave and whatever kinds of stuff you end up doing when you're doing karate, right? But you have to have that. It's necessary. How else would you know that you actually know karate unless you actually experienced being able to block and eventually punch, right? You have to have this stuff coming at you. And so, with that in mind, it's like we have to realize that when stuff is coming at us and when we are being triggered, it is for our good. It is how we are learning how to respond differently. It is learning like how internally we want to like love and honor ourselves differently, or how we want to love and honor the other person differently, which is super challenging, right? Um, and so the other thing, now I'm kind of really going with my knowledge of karate based on TV and movies, is like think about that super cool scene in The Karate Kid that we all know, and I'm clearly not ruining anything since the movie's decades old, but that scene in the movie where, Ralph Macchio is having to like do all these chores for Mr. Miyagi, and he's annoyed by them and he doesn't understand, right? Until that moment where he gets kind of pissed off and he kind of yells at Mr. Miyagi, and then Mr. Miyagi's like makes him show, right? Wax on, wax off, right? And in that moment, when Mr. Miyagi starts throwing punches at him and starts doing stuff, all of a sudden he's like, holy shit, I actually know this is all relevant. I actually am learning stuff. I didn't know I was learning stuff, but I can see now that I'm learning stuff, right? That, my friends, is what our healing journey looks like. That. So if you are working with a therapist, listening to podcasts, reading stuff, whatever your thing is, you're taking in information, you're taking in knowledge. Hopefully you are engaging in something that is experiential, right? So like when I'm working with some of my clients, it's experiential, meaning like feel that feeling and like lean into it, feel it and offer it love and da da da. So it's having those experiences for the purpose of at some point your life is going to keep coming at you, and just like Daniel LaRusso, like you're not going to know how much you know until those things come at you. And then you're going to realize, like, wow, I just reacted to that thing really differently. That same thing just happened, and I took a step back, or I stood my ground more firmly and used my voice, like whatever each of our own things are that we need to work on, right? But we're not going to know it until we're on the mat. But we have to engage in the learning process too, right? We have to like actively be taking new information in and considering perspectives from other people that might know more. We have to be practicing all that stuff. We have to practice, right? Like Mr. Miyagi did not have him like just do that once. No, he had to like do that with a whole bunch of cars, right? So we have to be practicing it more often and trust that something is happening here, even if I can't actually see it all the way. And then we're on the mat and stuff happens, and then we see it and we know and go like, oh my gosh, this was stuff that I was working for that I didn't know that I was working for. So I'm saying all of this to say, make sure you are taking in information, make sure you are actively on purpose, intentionally experiencing different tools, different ways of doing things, and then also trusting that when stuff is coming at you, it is for your good. It is so that you will know that you have been healing, that your work has paid off, and that you can show up in your life in a totally different way than what you have been. So everything is happening for our good, my friends. Peace out until next time.